Rachel Reeves is facing the fight of her political career as her controversial national insurance hike sparks outrage across the UK. Critics from all sides have labelled the Labour Chancellor Ebenezer Scrooge, accusing her of robbing Britons of their goodwill during a time of crisis. The policy, which raises the national insurance rate for employers to 15%, will see charities handing over an additional £1.4 billion annually to HMRC starting next year. This means 45 pence of every pound donated to good causes will now funnel into government coffers, leaving charities reeling and the public furious. Before diving into the full scandal, let's show you the human cost of this decision. Watch this emotional clip of a businessman directly addressing Rachel Reeves with a heartfelt plea about the devastating impact of her policy.
So please can you introduce yourself, Ed?
I'm Ed Rogers from EM Rogers Transport.
And how is your business going to be affected by Rachel Reeves' budget, Ed? And how is it affecting your family and their mental health?
It's causing genuine concern to our family. We've been established for 80 years next year, so third generation, and it's very concerning. It's very concerning for my generation, and certainly my father and uncle who are still involved in the business. They're worried about what they do with the business going forward. They've planned and got themselves in a position that they could hand the business on when the time came, and that's all changed.
And so what would it mean in terms of financial implications for you?
Having worked in the business for a number of years myself, we would have to potentially buy our business back, as it were, or pay for that, which could certainly impact us to up to £6 million, basically.
And so your father currently runs the business?
Yeah, my father and uncle are very much still involved in the business. Day-to-day wise, they're not as involved as they once were, but they're very much still involved in the business.
And presumably he's an older gentleman nowadays.
Yeah, my father's and my uncle have both worked in the business for 50 years. They're 70 and 74, so they've done their time within the business.
Yeah. So how does he feel? How does he feel about it?
He's very concerned about it. As I said, we've had a conversation around this, what the best way forward. He even mentioned maybe making a trip to Switzerland in March of 2026.
And Rachel Reeves walks around the corner right now, and you have 1 minute to give her a message. What would you say?
Well, I think she needs to reel back on this sort of budget and encourage growth. Basically, this is just going to destroy many family businesses, and it needs to change. It doesn't encourage growth. Taxation in this way does not encourage growth. So please go back, have a look at all the look at what could be achieved in a better way.
The clip has resonated deeply with Britons, many of whom are already questioning how their charitable donations can make a difference under this new regime. For charities, the stakes couldn't be higher. Organisations like the RSPCA warn that the hike will cost them over £1 million annually, jeopardising their ability to rescue and care for animals. Marie Curie has voiced fears that its end-of-life care programmes will be severely impacted, with CEO Matthew Reed stating that no donor would want their money funnelled straight into HMRC's coffers. Smaller charities are hit even harder. Many rely almost exclusively on public donations to stay afloat, and leaders warn they may have to shut their doors entirely. Sarah Elliott, head of the National Council for Voluntary Organisations, described the situation as devastating. Charities are already struggling to meet demand during the cost of living crisis, she said. This policy will force many to make impossible choices, cutting services, laying off staff, or closing altogether. Public outrage is at an all-time high. Across social media, hashtags like Gescience Stop the Tax Grab and Fire Scrooge Reeves are trending as Britons vent their anger at what they see as a betrayal of trust. Donations, meant to support the most vulnerable, are now being redirected to plug government budget gaps. Many donors are reconsidering their contributions altogether, worried that nearly half of their generosity will end up in the Treasury's pocket. Politicians from all sides have weighed in, with some delivering scathing critiques of Reeves's leadership. Conservative MP Jacob Rees-Mogg didn't mince words, likening Reeves to the infamous miser from A Christmas Carol. "She's modelling herself on Ebenezer Scrooge before the ghosts come calling," he said on GB News. By imposing this heartless tax rise, Rachel Reeves isn't just failing to help Tiny Tim, she's kicking his crutch away. Labour MP Richard Holden echoed this sentiment, calling Reeves a modern-day Grinch for what he described as dipping her hands deep into every charity-collecting tin. Last week, Conservative, Liberal Democrat and Reform MPs attempted to introduce an amendment to exempt charities from the tax hike, but Labour voted it down. This decision has only added fuel to the fire, with critics accusing the party of turning its back on the voluntary sector. Reeves has defended the policy as a necessary step to restore public finances. A Treasury spokesperson argued that the UK already has one of the most generous tax regimes for charities, citing exemptions from business rates and other financial breaks. But for critics, these assurances fall flat when juxtaposed with the harsh reality of the numbers. Charities are already handing over £4.9 billion annually to HMRC. Under the new policy, this will jump to £6.3 billion. Adding to the tension is the timing of the policy. With inflation soaring and energy bills skyrocketing, demand for charitable services has never been greater. Yet Reeves's tax hike will force many organisations to slash their programmes just to keep their doors open. Leaders warn that this perfect storm of rising costs and dwindling resources could leave millions of Britons without critical support during the winter months. Labour's internal messaging on the issue has been muddled, with some members breaking ranks to express their concerns. Shadow Culture Minister Stuart Anderson defended the hike as a necessary tough decision to address public finances, but Labour MP Graham Stringer urged Reeves to reconsider, calling the policy a slap in the face to charities and donors alike. The political fallout is growing by the day. Reeves may have intended this tax hike to demonstrate Labour's fiscal responsibility, but it's rapidly becoming a liability. Critics accuse her of targeting the wrong sectors and punishing the very institutions that hold society together during times of crisis. With the policy set to take effect in 2025, Reeves is running out of time to address the backlash. For now, charity leaders are pleading with the public not to lose faith. Craig Jones, CEO of the Royal Osteoporosis Society, stressed the importance of continued support. "Charities need donations now more than ever," he said. "We know this tax hike is discouraging, but we urge Britons to keep giving." Still, the long-term impact of Reeves's policy remains to be seen. If public trust in charitable giving erodes, the consequences could be catastrophic, not just for charities, but for the millions of people who rely on their services. This scandal shows no signs of dying down. Rachel Reeves has ignited a political firestorm that threatens to define her tenure as Chancellor. Will she dig in her heels, or will public pressure force her to reconsider? One thing is clear: the stakes couldn't be higher for charities, donors, and the Labour Party itself. Stay tuned for more updates on this explosive story, and don't forget to subscribe for the latest twists and turns in UK politics.